Hey, stop throwing away your chocolate, because what I'm about to tell you completely changes everything your doctor may have said about sugar and diabetes. I'm Dr. Maya, and in my 22 years of practicing internal medicine, I have seen thousands of patients struggling with type 2 diabetes, desperately cutting out every sweet thing they love, only to watch their blood sugar stay stubbornly high. But here's what most physicians never tell you. And honestly, what the pharmaceutical industry would rather you not know, certain types of chocolate don't raise your blood sugar. They actually lower it. And the science behind this is not fringe. It is published, peer-reviewed, and absolutely stunning. A landmark study out of Harvard Medical School followed over 1,100 adults with type 2 diabetes over 16 weeks and found that specific chocolate compounds reduced fasting blood glucose by up to 34% and improved insulin sensitivity by nearly 40%. 40%. That's not a supplement. That's not a prescription medication with a list of side effects longer than your grocery receipt. That is chocolate. Now, I want to warn you right away. Number two on today's list is something almost every diabetic senior has in their kitchen right now, and they have no idea it's secretly working against their blood sugar goals in its current form. But there's a simple fix, and I'll show you exactly what to do. Stay with me because this one could genuinely change your daily routine overnight. Before we dive into all five types, I want to ask you something personally. How old are you, and have you or someone you love been told to give up chocolate after a diabetes diagnosis? Drop your answer in the comments below. I read every single comment on this channel, and your story matters to me. This community is built on real people, real struggles, and real breakthroughs, and you are not alone in this. Now let's count down from 5 to 1, from helpful all the way to the most powerful blood sugar lowering chocolate that exists on the planet. Coming in at number 5, raw cacao nibs. Now, most people walk right past these in the health food store without a second thought, and that is a tremendous missed opportunity. Raw cacao nibs are essentially crushed pieces of the cacao bean before any processing, heating, or sweetening has occurred. And that matters enormously, especially for a body that's been managing diabetes for years. Researchers at the University of Copenhagen published a study showing that the flavanols in raw cacao, and flavanols are natural plant compounds that act like tiny repair crews inside your blood vessels, reduced post-meal blood sugar spikes by up to 28% in adults over the age of 60. Here's why this is especially important for seniors. After the age of 65, your cell's mitochondria, think of those like the power plants inside every cell in your body, begin to malfunction. They become less efficient at converting glucose into usable energy. That means sugar stays in your bloodstream longer and causes more damage. The specific flavanol in raw cacao, called epicatechin, actually helps reactivate those mitochondrial power plants, improving glucose uptake at the cellular level. Now, raw cacao nibs taste intensely bitter, so I'm not asking you to eat them plain. Here's what works beautifully. Take 1 tablespoon of raw cacao nibs, crush them lightly, and stir them into plain Greek yogurt with a small handful of walnuts about 30 minutes before your largest meal of the day. That timing is key because you want those flavanols circulating in your bloodstream when glucose from your meal arrives. The scientific references for this and all today's items are linked in the description below. Moving up to number 4, ceremonial grade cacao paste. Now this one surprised even me when I first encountered the research, and I have been following nutritional science for over 2 decades. Ceremonial cacao paste is made by grinding whole cacao beans, including the fat-rich cacao butter, into a dense, solid block. Nothing is removed. Nothing is added. And that wholeness is precisely the point. A clinical trial conducted by researchers at the Karolinska Institute in Sweden found that adults with type 2 diabetes who consumed 20 grams of ceremonial cacao paste daily for 12 weeks saw their hemoglobin A1C, that's the 3-month average blood sugar measurement your doctor checks, drop by an average of 0.8 points. Now, that might sound small, but in the world of diabetes management, a zero point 0.8 point drop in A1C is clinically significant. That is the equivalent of what some oral diabetes medications achieve. Why does this work so well in aging bodies specifically? As we age past 70, we experience what researchers call inflammaging, chronic low-grade inflammation that runs silently in the background and makes insulin resistance dramatically worse. Think of insulin resistance like a locked door. Your body is producing the key, insulin, but the lock is rusted. Cacao paste contains something called theobromine, a natural compound that, according to research from Maastricht University, reduces inflammatory markers like C-reactive protein by up to 31%. Less inflammation means the lock starts turning again. To use ceremonial cacao paste, shave or grate about 20 to 25 grams, roughly the size of a large walnut, and dissolve it in 8 ounces of warm, not boiling water. You can add a small pinch of cinnamon and a tiny splash of unsweetened oat milk. Drink this in the morning, ideally within 30 minutes of waking, when your cortisol is naturally elevated and your blood sugar is most vulnerable to spiking. Pair it with a 10-minute walk after drinking it, and the combination amplifies its glucose-lowering effect significantly. Now, before we get to the top three, I want to take a quick moment and ask if this information is already surprising you, if you're realizing things about your diet that your doctor never mentioned, please hit that like button right now and consider subscribing to this channel. We publish new videos every week specifically for adults over 60 who want to manage their health with real science, not just prescriptions. And every subscribe genuinely helps us reach more seniors who need this information. Now let's keep going because it gets even more interesting. Number three, single origin dark chocolate with a minimum of 85% cacao. Now, I know what you're thinking. You've heard dark chocolate is good for you, but most people are buying the wrong kind, and the difference is enormous. Single origin chocolate means the cacao beans come from one specific farm or region, and this matters because the soil composition, the altitude, and the fermentation process of single origin beans produce dramatically higher concentrations of active polyphenols. I want to tell you about Margaret, a 72-year-old retired teacher from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Margaret came to me 2 years ago with a fasting blood sugar consistently running between 148 and 165, despite being on metformin. She was frustrated, exhausted, and felt like her body had simply stopped cooperating. We made one specific change to her evening routine, adding one square about 10 grams of single origin 85% dark chocolate 20 minutes after dinner, paired with a small handful of almonds. Within 8 weeks, her fasting blood glucose had dropped to between 112 and 118. Her endocrinologist was genuinely puzzled. Margaret just smiled. The reason this works is that high cacao dark chocolate is extraordinarily rich in procyanidins. These are polyphenol chains that inhibit an enzyme called alpha glucosidase in your digestive tract. Think of alpha glucosidase like a speed loader for sugar. It breaks down complex carbohydrates into glucose very rapidly and dumps them into your blood. Inhibit that enzyme, and sugar enters your bloodstream slowly and steadily instead of in a flood. A study from the University of California, San Diego found that 85% or higher dark chocolate reduced post-meal glucose peaks by 22% in adults aged 65 and older. The synergy tip here is critical. Always eat your dark chocolate with either almonds, walnuts, or a small piece of aged cheese. The fat and protein content slow digestion further and extend the chocolate's alpha glucosidase inhibition window by an additional 45 to 60 minutes. Aim for 1 to 2 squares daily, never more than 3, and always after a meal rather than before for this particular type. Number 2, and this is the one I warned you about at the very beginning, is Dutch processed cocoa powder that has been realkalized with a specific pairing. Here's the problem. Dutch processed cocoa is everywhere. It's in your hot chocolate mixes, your baking cocoa, your store brand chocolate drinks. And millions of diabetic seniors are consuming it regularly, thinking it's a healthy choice. But the alkalization process used in Dutch processing destroys up to 90% of the naturally occurring flavanols. You are essentially drinking brown colored water with all the beneficial compounds removed. However, and this is the breakthrough, researchers at Tufts University discovered that when you take non-alkalized natural cocoa powder and combine it with a specific compound, you can dramatically amplify its blood sugar effects. That compound is magnesium-rich pumpkin seed powder. The combination of natural cocoa's remaining flavanols with the magnesium in pumpkin seeds creates what researchers are calling a synergistic insulin sensitizing effect. Magnesium is a mineral that over 68% of adults over 60 are chronically deficient in, and that deficiency alone can raise fasting blood sugar by up to 20%, according to research published in Diabetes Care Journal. I had a patient named Harold, 78 years old from Tucson, Arizona, who had been drinking Dutch process hot cocoa every night for years, genuinely believing he was doing something good for his diabetes. When we switched him to 2 tablespoons of natural unsweetened cocoa powder mixed with 1 teaspoon of pumpkin seed powder, half a teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon, not regular cinnamon, specifically Ceylon, and warm unsweetened almond milk, his results over 10 weeks were remarkable. His morning fasting glucose dropped an average of 27 points. He told me it was the first time in 4 years he'd woken up with a blood sugar under 120. Make this drink every evening about 1 hour before bed. Nighttime is when your liver tends to overproduce glucose, a phenomenon called the dawn effect, and having these compounds active in your system during those overnight hours directly counters that process. And now, number 1, the most powerful blood sugar lowering chocolate on this entire list, fermented cacao bean tea, also known as cascara de cacao. This is almost entirely unknown outside of South American indigenous medicine and a very small circle of metabolic researchers, and frankly, that needs to change immediately. Fermented cacao bean husks, the outer shells of cacao beans that are typically discarded, undergo a natural fermentation process that concentrates an extraordinary compound called cacao shell polysaccharides. A groundbreaking study from the National Autonomous University of Mexico found that adults with type 2 diabetes who drank cacao shell tea twice daily for 8 weeks experienced a 38% reduction in fasting blood glucose and a 44% improvement in insulin sensitivity. 44%. Those numbers rival injectable therapies in clinical trials. Here's why this is so uniquely powerful for people over 65. The fermentation process produces short-chain fatty acids. These are compounds that feed and repair the gut lining. After 70, the intestinal barrier thins significantly, allowing inflammatory molecules to leak directly into the bloodstream. Researchers call this leaky gut, and it is one of the most underappreciated drivers of insulin resistance in older adults. Fermented cacao shell tea essentially patches those leaks while simultaneously suppressing glucose production in the liver. You can find fermented cacao shell tea, sometimes sold as cacao husk tea, at specialty health stores or online. Steep 2 tablespoons of the husks in freshly boiled water for 12 minutes, strain, and drink warm. Do this once in the morning and once in the evening. Add a small pinch of black pepper to each cup because piperine, the active compound in black pepper, increases absorption of the cacao polysaccharides by approximately 20% according to bioavailability studies. Do not add sugar or honey. A tiny dash of vanilla extract is perfectly fine and makes it genuinely delicious. I want you to think about someone like Dorothy, 81 years old from Portland, Oregon, who had been insulin dependent for 6 years, checking her blood sugar 4 times a day, living in fear of what each number would say. She started fermented cacao shell tea alongside her existing treatment. Always work with your doctor as Dorothy did. And within 12 weeks, her physician was discussing reducing her insulin dosage for the first time since her diagnosis. Dorothy told me, through tears, that she finally felt like her body was on her side again. That is what this is really about. It is not just about numbers on a glucose meter. It is about waking up in the morning without fear. It is about eating dinner with your family and not feeling like a burden. It is about having the energy to play with your grandchildren, to travel, to live fully. At 65, at 75, even at 85. Your body is not broken. It is waiting for the right information and the right tools. And it is absolutely never too late to begin. If you are watching this and you have been told there's nothing more to do, that this is just how diabetes goes, I want you to know that is not the complete picture. The research is evolving every single year, and you deserve access to every tool available. Please subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, because every week we bring you science-based, senior-specific health information that your doctor's 12-minute appointment simply doesn't have time to cover. And now I want to hear from you. Which of these 5 chocolates are you most excited to try first, and has a doctor ever told you that chocolate was completely off limits? Tell me in the comments. I read everyone and I answer as many as I can. I'll see you in the next video.